Hi, welcome to Saturday Sessions. I'm your host, Doc Walter, and today I want to talk specifically to all of you that are fathers. The topic, the theme for this three-part Saturday session is fatherhood, parenting in general, but again, we're talking just about men, so let's talk about fatherhood. I want to talk about three specific things. Fatherhood is about leadership. It is about faithfulness. And finally, it is about, I guess you could say modeling, right? Modeling behavior, a certain kind of behavior. And they're all linked together. Leadership, faithfulness, and modeling a set of behaviors. One of the things that I have to admit that was a tremendous struggle for me was this realization that I had a child, and yet I was not being the leader in the home, definitely in the marriage, but I wasn't being the leader for that kid. Instead, I had this secret. I had this addiction. And I kept it from my spouse. I kept it from, obviously, anybody else in my family. There were a few friends, but I never had told them. I was basically living a lie, though, right? And so many of you probably can relate, at least at different levels or different aspects of my story. We're wearing two masks. We're one way with family, with friends. We are another way out in public, within the community, maybe within the church community that we are a part of. And then we are who we are in secret. And this was, this was a huge part for 3 years of my life. And it slowly ate away at every other aspect of my life. And I don't need to ask because I know that the same is happening for you. Your relationship with your spouse is suffering. You're probably arguing more. Maybe you're not even talking. Your sex life, the intimacy, not just physical, but the intellectual and the emotional is non-existent. Or if it does exist, it is so strained that you have completely given up on even the idea that it can be fixed. That lie of the masks that you have with your friends and your family it's wearing pretty thin. And then, of course, you feel like the hypocrite inside, right? You're telling yourself this when you go to church, when you're in your Bible study. If you go to services on Sunday, hopefully you are, but even at that point, when you're there, you're feeling the hypocrite. Well, yes, you are. And I was. And it was a very hard gut punch to realize that I needed to change my life. I needed to significantly alter my behavior. This is what you need to do. Now, I had to do it for health. I had to do it for relationship. But after a while, I realized I also had to do it for my child. And I have more kids now. So I don't want to go back to that kind of life because it's children now. So those of you, men, that are fathers, we can relate, can't we? Because when our addict brain is not telling us the lies, which we have created and that we feed each other, we feed ourselves this, when that's not happening, when the sober brain, we want to think of it like that, we know what we're doing is wrong. We know what we're doing is hypocritical. We know that what we are doing, the secret is eating us inside. And if we have been able to be honest and had a conversation with our spouse, I applaud you. I respect what you have done, and I say bravo. And now you're trying to be sober, and it's kind of eating you inside if you've been relapsing because you don't want to share it, that you have failed. And see, the failure is, I think, a very much, at least for me, it was a psychological importance. I did not want to fail. I didn't want to fail being the leader. So I had constructed a straw house of images, of perceptions that I was. But in fact, I was not. To be the leader of your family requires you to be a servant to your family. And I understand to say that is contrary to every macho alpha male theology that we find on social media and every movie that maybe we have watched, and maybe even when we go and we would have a few drinks with our friends. It is completely contrary to that, but this is the truth. To be a leader in your family requires you to be a servant to your family. And you cannot be a servant if you are addicted. Now, there are habits that you can begin, and in other videos, this has been discussed. If you want to work directly with me on creating more positive habits, I'd love to do that. We can do that together. Habits is one thing, and actually one of the habits is a more lively, more engaged prayer life. So faith and faithfulness, and that's going to be in part 2, what we'll be discussing next. But I want to say that I want you to write this down if you haven't yet. It is important. It is necessary for you to know. You cannot be the leader of your family until or unless you are willing to be the servant to your family. And that goes contrary to everything that modern culture, machoism, masculinity has kind of shoved down our throats. We've replaced the study for a man cave. We look at sports and our time alone and time with the boys more than time with maybe our children or with our spouse. And if we are ensnared in this addiction, that's even less time that we are spending. Men, you can't be then a proper leader of your family if when you're coming home and you're going immediately into your office and you're locking the door and you're looking at pornography. Or in the evening after you have said goodnight to everybody, you're masturbating, because that is what's going to give you some form of enjoyment rather than the intimacy perhaps that you can find, physical intimacy with your spouse, or the emotional intimacy that you can find with your children. You cannot be the leader unless you become the servant. And one of the ways that we can do that is through faithfulness. So let's talk about that.